Greetings, fellow people of YouTube, and welcome to the Saphira Center of Shamanism, where we break down the shamanic and occult sciences. And my name is Luke, experienced practitioner and mentor of the shamanic and occult sciences. It's an honor to have you with me. Definitely check out the links within the description of this video if you have interest in working with me. First link for the premium membership service, second link for the Patreon, and the third link for my healing and mentoring services. Definitely check those out. Today's topic is going to be discussing infernal initiation, but specifically an area of infernal initiation that does not get spoken about much at all, and that is the impact of infernal initiation on family members and those close to you. This is an important consideration when you are undertaking infernal initiations such as the Qliphothic path and similar. These energies are extremely dense, some of the most powerful, but also some of the most aggressive forms of self-development that you can engage with. And when you are going through so many shifts within yourself, when you are going through so much dissolving, so much healing, of course, that is going to have an impact on the types of people that you encounter, as well as people around you, such as family members, friends, relationship dynamics that are used to you being in a certain way. So we're going to be discussing the real impact that infernal initiation has on family members and those close to you, so that you can understand how to approach this and how to ultimately work with those around you and not just use these energies to fuel your separation. With infernal initiation, the core initiations come through people around you. They come through your relationship dynamics, they come through your friends, they come through family. A lot of the initiations happen through this way. So we're going to be really discussing in detail the specific process that your family members or your partner or your friends that you're close to are going to be going on as a result of you embarking on deep infernal initiation. So definitely stay tuned. Okay, relationship dynamics within infernal initiation. One of the most triggering subjects by far, because a lot of initiations, what I've found with myself and with other people as well, is that a lot of initiations will come through relationship dynamics, whether it's through romantic partnerships, through friendships, family members, encounters. A lot of the time, the infernal energies do interact with you via people around you. And I do feel that people around you are often used as conduits, as avatars for the initiatory energies that you are going through. So the short question that we have to ask is, do family members, friendships, relationship dynamics, children, do they get impacted by the Qliphothic energy? Yes, yes, and yes. 100% they will be impacted by your infernal initiation, be that through the Qliphothic realms or be that through another type of infernal initiation. They will be impacted by it 100%. But they will be impacted by it to the extent that their soul is able to handle and metabolize. So this means that those who are not on the self-development path at all, who are in lots of coping mechanisms and are not interacting with their healing path at all, typically they will be less susceptible to the Qliphothic work. The Qliphothic work does need an aspect of free will to be able to work for those around you. So those who are not engaging at all or doing any form of trauma integration work, from my experience, are unlikely to be impacted by the Qliphothic energies in a conscious way. But what it may do is manifest challenges for them that are very much orchestrated by the Qliphothic energies and by the person's soul to shatter coping mechanisms and push them closer to their truth and authenticity. Nobody around you is going to be going through a process that they are not going to be able to handle. It's important to understand that. From my experience going through my cliffothic process, and I'm still going through my cliffothic process, what I'm seeing based off of family members, friendships, is that certain people are able to consciously pick up on the energies of the cliffothic initiation process that I am going through. My partner being one of them. Okay, she is on a very deep self-development journey herself, a deep trauma integration path, a lot of inner child work, a lot of somatic work, so works a lot with her body and is on a very deep process anyway. She has basically been mirroring my cliffothic process throughout the entire thing. We got together before my cliffothic initiation, and when I started going through it, she was experiencing the energies as well. But it wasn't to the extent that she was initiating into it with me, but she was experiencing the energies. For example, when I was in Gola Chab, Asmodeus' sphere of the Cliffoth, she was experiencing the same fire-like sensations in the body that I was, and she was going through a significant dissolving process as a result of it. But the main reason for that is because that's what her soul wants, and that is what she's ready for. So that meant that my cliffothic process has heavily impacted her initiatory path as well. From what I've seen with family members, and I have been around family members whilst going through my cliffothic process, is that they are definitely impacted, but in a way that is unconscious, in a way that they're not able to consciously perceive. A lot of my cliffothic initiations have come through my mother's terminal diagnosis. So a lot of my initiations were taking place through her, and her process and her journey with terminal cancer has definitely been impacted by my journey through the Cliffoth, absolutely. But in a way that she is not necessarily able to consciously perceive or comprehend. I'll give you an example. Opening a given sphere, I started feeling something specific, and then a family member would be reporting the exact same feeling at the exact same time, or starting at the exact same time as I opened that given sphere. So that is a clear indication that they are being impacted by the cliffothic energy, but potentially in a way that they don't fully understand, or in a way that they are not fully aware of. So, yes, people around you are absolutely impacted by infernal initiation, 100%, but not in a way that is going to be at their evolutionary detriment. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be put through challenges, and often if people stay in your life when you're going through such an initiatory process, it is probably the case that you have some form of soul contract that sort of kind of ties you in through your true will to go through that kind of initiatory process together. What you will find is that relationships that are built off of any aspect of the false self will not survive your descent into the infernal realms, such as relationships being built off of coping mechanisms, family dynamics that overstep boundaries constantly, friendship dynamics that demand more from you than what you're able to sustainably give. Dynamics like that are not going to be able to survive the cliffothic process. You can try and hold on to them if you want to, but you will be cursing yourself in the process. When you're holding on to the false self, when you're going through infernal initiation, that is when things will become difficult. So what you will find is that those who are not able to embody the durability and the fluidity that your soul is going to need to continuously evolve, those dynamics will inevitably fall away from your life in ways that you're not necessarily going to be able to control. The only thing that you can control as the initiate going through the process is the accountability that you take of, for your own stuff, the accountability and the ownership that you take for your own wounds, your own failings, your own limitations. That's the only thing that you are able to control. You cannot control whether somebody stays in your life at the same capacity as they were before your initiations, you cannot control whether they stay in your life at that capacity when you go through it. You just have to let go and accept the fact that your relationships are going to change. Relationships that aren't able to evolve with you, as I said, you likely have a soul contract in place that is basically outlining this type of initiatory process. In a way, this can be more challenging because you have to be willing to let the relationship evolve and adapt, which means you have to be honest with the person about when your needs weren't met, and you have to be willing to take accountability when the other person's needs were not met as well, particularly on the romantic level. The Cliffothic/Infernal initiation processes are going to very likely move you into a place of needing what we call sacred partnership on the romantic level. Sacred partnership is not a normal relationship dynamic. Most relationship dynamics are built off of coping mechanisms. Most relationship dynamics support the false self and often see each person in the relationship as a projection of a given archetype that represents what they want in a relationship dynamic as opposed to what it actually is. Sacred partnership is the embodiment of true and authentic divine masculine and feminine energy. What's the true role of the divine masculine and the divine feminine is to activate each other, to activate each other's potential, to activate each other's power, and ultimately to evoke each other's wounds so that you can hold each other and integrate those wounds. Most people want sacred partnership, or they say that they want a relationship that is able to grow with them. But when it actually comes to the crunch, when it actually comes to a relationship dynamic that is able to withstand and stay standing and able to adapt to infernal initiation, most people, I will say most people, will run in the other direction because you are basically committing to having somebody there who is absolutely amazing and beautiful on every level, but is a massive spotlight into your own shadow, a massive spotlight into your shadow that is there to activate your potential. And in doing so, is going to activate the wounds that you have around embodying your true potential and your true divinity. So, on one hand, this will initiate a massive evolutionary process for you as the initiate, and it will also initiate a massive evolutionary process for the given relationship dynamic that is evolving with you, for the other person in the dynamic as well. The challenge when going through infernal initiation is that you are being unmade. So you are having a lot of your unmet needs exposed. And often relationships that we have going into infernal initiation, or that we have before infernal initiation, whether it's on the romantic level, on the level of family members or friends, a lot of the time they may unconsciously, without you realizing it, support what is false within you. They may actually be depriving your essence without you realizing it. Not all, as I said, some dynamics are going to be able to grow and evolve with you as you are going through that initiatory process. But when you start to open up and you start to realistically break the shells that are established around your heart and you start becoming more vulnerable, environments that are depriving your vulnerability are going to become unbearable. You are not going to be able to stay in the same family dynamics that are shutting you down 24/7. As I said, the relationships will either evolve with you or they will have to fall away or have significant boundaries put in place. For myself, there's certain family members that I have had to apply an extremely strong boundary with, in the sense that they are still in my life to some capacity, but I see them quite rarely because I am regularly shut down within those dynamics, and that is not something that my inner child wants to withstand anymore. When you're going through infernal initiation, you have to understand that your inner child comes first. And dynamics that are depriving your inner child's essence or trying to push you into something that represents what you think that you want to be, or realistically what they want you to be, are going to have to fall away. Otherwise, you are going to significantly re-traumatize yourself in that dynamic. Being in a relationship dynamic whilst you're going through the cliffothic process can be extremely challenging for multiple reasons. One is the continuous accountability, continuous vulnerability, and also holding the other person. Try going through the cliffothic abyss, dissolving and annihilating your sense of self, and holding somebody else as well whilst you are going through that initiatory process. It doesn't get more challenging than that. Or even when you leave the abyss and you move into Satariel. Satariel, that people think is going to give them lots of beautiful realizations, which it will, but then what has then survived after the abyssal realms, we're talking about the Cliffoth here, what then survives after descending into the abyss when you go into Satariel will then be tested. Yeah, Satariel, Lucifugedrophocale will take your relationship dynamics and bend them as far as they can bend before they break. Okay, and those that break will not be carried with you through the later stages of initiation. Those that break and those that are not able to evolve with you through truth, authenticity, and vulnerability will break down and dissolve with the shell that you are dissolving. So basically, dynamics that are reliant on the shells that you're breaking when you go through infernal initiation will break down. There is always going to be an aspect of your relationships that are reliant on the false self. And that means that when that shell breaks, the relationship has the potential to evolve with you if you and the other person have the ability to take accountability and continue to meet each other's needs once that shell has broken down. And this is what sacred partnership is. Sacred partnership is very much activating the true potential within the person, within each person, within a relationship dynamic, which means that you're constantly evolving, constantly growing, constantly growing. Okay. When you're in sacred partnership, you can't get too comfortable. You can't get too comfortable with how things are, because when you are in sacred partnership, things are going to have to evolve. Things are going to have to evolve with you. You are going to have to change. You are going to have to become a more authentic version of yourself, and so will the other person, in order for that relationship to continue to evolve. So when you engage with infernal initiation, your relationship dynamics will either go through that initiatory process with you, and it's not going to be easy, which means that you are going to have needs come to the surface. You have to be in an environment whereby your inner child is able to be held, your inner child is able to be heard, and you are also going to have to continue to hold the other person throughout that initiatory process as well. I would say it's the most challenging with relationship dynamics when it comes to romantic connections, because this is where you're most vulnerable. This is where you are in dynamics whereby you have the whereby, yes, you could be re-traumatized if somebody responds in a certain way. You could be re-traumatized if somebody operates from their protective mechanisms of, trying to protect themselves and then projecting blame upon you when you're trying to be vulnerable. Of course, it's going to happen from time to time when you are in a relationship dynamic. But if you're going into infernal initiation, you are going to be forced to be honest with yourself and the other person. And you are going to have to very much evoke the different aspects of yourself that you may have repressed, or the certain needs that you may have repressed, in order to try and maintain something which may not actually be aligned to your truth and authenticity. So absolutely, those around you are going to be massively impacted by your initiatory process through infernal initiation. Your children, if you have children, do you have to worry about your children? No, you don't have to worry about your children. I'll tell you why. Because the infernals they respect innocence. In fact, they represent innocence. The infernals are personifications of the aspects of yourself that are actually encasing your innocence. So when we look at the Qliphoth, for example, the Qliphothic tree, what we are really looking at here is a symbolic sanctuary that is being held for your inner child. Okay, holding the aspects of yourself within your nervous system, within your unconscious mind, until you are ready to go and retrieve them again. So that means that infernals actually are extremely respectful towards children. In fact, they honor innocence probably more than any other spirit that I have seen. And they only become aggressive when the innocence is taken away. So if you're in a space whereby, you're repressing your own innocence, then they will aggressively tear away the illusion that is repressing your innocence. So when it comes to children, yes, they are going to be impacted by the energies, but they are likely going to be extremely empowered by it because, first and foremost, a child is in a more pure state of their truth and authenticity, particularly if they are below the age of 10. They are in a clearer avatar that is a clearer vessel for their soul's essence at that time before they have gone through the core separation phase that is represented by adolescence. So this means that they first and foremost are not necessarily going to understand the Qliphothic initiation to any point, and because it requires free will, their free will is ultimately not going to allow in any, initiations that are there to reconnect them with their innocence because they're already connected to their innocence. The people around you who are already adults who are holding on to coping mechanisms will likely experience some form of dissolving to the extent that they're able to process and integrate in order to reconnect them to their inner child's essence. Whereas if you have a child, then your child is already connected to their innocence by default. So if you have a teenager, they are already connected to that innocence, even though they're trying to hide it within adolescence. They are already an embodiment of that innocence. So that basically means that no dissolving process is actually going to be required for them. Instead, the Qliphothic energies are just going to be extremely empowering. I worked with someone once, facilitating a path working through the 9 gatekeepers of hell. Lucifer, Drophocale, Abaddon, Baal, Azazel, Beelzebub, Mammon, Asmodeus, Belial, and Satan. When they were going through that process, they had a small child and they were worried the impact that the energies were going to have on the child. And I said, that's completely valid. And I explained what I just said around innocence. And what actually happened is that they, as the parent, were going through a significant process of retrieving their innocence, going through a huge dissolving process. Meanwhile, their child was actually doing extremely well, was getting achievements at school, getting certificates, getting awards, coming home with loads of stickers, all of these types of things. So in that case, yes, they were impacted by the infernal slash Qliphothic forces that they were invoking and that they were initiating into, but in a way that was actually extremely empowering. So if you are, sort of wondering if you have children, should I go through this initiation whilst I have children? Only you can make that decision, but you can rest assured that these energies are not going to interact with children in a negative way. They're actually going to extremely empower your environment for your children so that your environment is actually a more conducive technology to support their innocence. So I found that having infernals within your space, if you work a lot with infernal spirits, having infernals within your environment is actually extremely supportive to inner child work and is actually extremely supportive in actually creating a safe sanctuary and container for the children around you and for your own inner child, because that is what the daemons do in the unconscious mind. They symbolically hold sanctuary for the inner child, ready for when you are to retrieve it again. So, of course, they're going to be impacted by those energies, but not in a negative way. So, to really summarize here, the initiatory process through infernal realms, such as the Cliffothic realms, is going to push you into a place whereby you are not going to be able to maintain dynamics that are built off of something that is illusionary, that are built off of coping mechanisms, built out of lack, and things like that. The dynamics that are not going to be able to evolve with you will fall away or become distant from your life. The dynamics that will and are able to evolve with you will remain prominent figures within your life. You will also receive more people coming into your life that will act as avatars for your initiatory process. You do have to bear in mind that if you have a partner who is open to Cliffothic work whilst you are going through your Cliffothic process, you have to bear in mind that they will likely be used as a microphone from time to time. They will likely be used as a microphone for the spirit that you're working with. The amount of times that the spirits within the Cliffoth have communicated to me through direct dialogue via my partner. I've lost count of the amount of times that that has happened. Just like how those around you who are cycling in traumatic patterns, or you encounter somebody, in your day-to-day life that is, an archetypal representation, often they are used as a temporary vessel for the initiatory process that you are going through. So yes, the ripple effect is very tangible. You will encounter people who are archetypal representations and vessels for the energy that you are working with. And often you may even have encounters that come into your life at a given time that are actually a splitting image of that particular spirit that once you've integrated that aspect of you may just completely leave your life. And this happens as well. Dynamics that represent things and archetypal energies within your unconscious mind that are built out of repressed trauma and built out of unmet needs. Sometimes when you start to meet those needs, your energetic resonance will change, and then those dynamics will inevitably leave your life. This is why it's so out of your control, because you could have somebody in your life that resonates energetically with an archetype that you have within your collective unconscious, within your unconscious mind, without you actually being consciously aware of it. And then once you go through a process of integrating that, then that soul contract could very easily have run its course and played out its core role. And then what happens? The vibrational resonance breaks, and then you become distant or they leave your life. So this happens anyway through your healing process. This happens to everybody. I mean, whether you're going through infernal initiation or not, you're not in control as to who falls away from your life, as long as you are being vulnerable, open, and ultimately taking accountability for your own stuff and taking accountability for your own limitations, failings, and for your own wounds and emotional responses. But when you interact with infernal initiation, this will shift up a notch. You are making a commitment to go through continuous accelerated evolution, which means that the world around you will start to drastically change. Okay, and the relationships around you will also start to drastically change as well, and they will need to support your inner child's evolution. Sometimes part of the initiatory process is to set a boundary. Sometimes part of the initiatory processes, such as the ones that you encounter within the Cliffothic realms, sometimes people don't fall away automatically. Sometimes you have to initiate it through discernment. Sometimes you have to initiate a strong boundary in order for things to change. And often infernals are going to move you into a place whereby you are learning how to serve yourself and learning how to serve your own inner child. And you have to be prepared for the fact that not everybody around you is going to like that. Some people around you may actually find it extremely disrespectful when you start serving yourself instead of playing out the role that they are projecting onto you. This happens a lot with family members, okay? I've experienced it myself, and I've experienced it with other people that I've seen as well, is that family members can very easily see what they want to see, okay? So it's very easy for a mother and a father to project an image onto you. In other words, it's very easy for them to see their son or their daughter and not actually see you, which means that they have predefined roles and personas that they are projecting onto you unconsciously because of their unprocessed trauma. So that means that you, as the son or as the daughter, have particular roles to play in their eyes, whether they are consciously aware of that or not. This is the case in the majority of mother-son, father-son, mother-daughter, father-daughter encounters. They have particular roles that they are projecting upon you. You go through infernal initiation, they will dissolve, you will be learning how to serve yourself, and you will have to make a choice in some cases. You will have to make a choice as to whether to continue that perpetual karmic cycle of playing out the roles that other people are projecting upon you, or to actually put a boundary in place and serve yourself. Okay, some dynamics do not require those boundaries. Some dynamics are supportive to the evolution of your soul. But from my experience, in a lot of cases, parent dynamics do need to change, and family dynamics often do need to change. And the issue is that families, according to the ancestral line, are operating from these illusionary ideals as to how families should be. And it's the same with relationship dynamics and the same with friendship dynamics. So when you start serving yourself, people around you are not always going to like it. Some people may respect it, whereas others may actually put up a certain fight. And often this is a very core initiatory gate that you need to walk through as an initiate. It is a core initiatory gate that you need to travel through in order to break a massive karmic cycle. You will not be able to withstand karmic backlash when you are going through infernal initiation. When you do, or you are still holding on to dynamics and continuing to play out certain roles, despite the fact that you have received many messages and you can feel, according to your body sensations, that this is not right for you, you will build significant karmic backlash in that direction, which means that it's going to become more and more unbearable until you break the pattern. So often the patterns and karmic cycles that you're carrying out and the roles that you're playing out for other people without realizing it do need to be broken with your own free will. So it's something that many people do not understand fully when they get into this type of initiatory process, in the sense that, yes, boundaries are going to be tested. Your dynamics are going to be tested. Okay, the daemons are going to take the dynamics around you and, as I said, bend them as far as they can be bent in order for them to either break or survive the fluidity that you are needing to embody for your evolutionary path. You're going into infernal initiation, you are embodying fluidity, which means that your soul is going to need fluidity in order to evolve, which means that it's not going to be in a solid structure like how a lot of people's psyches and nervous systems are established. It's not going to support the patriarchal structure that you have been wired into from birth, which means that naturally you are going to resonate less with people who are still operating within that patriarchal system, and either they will evolve with you and exit that patriarchal system with you, or they won't, and they will leave your life inevitably. So a massive subject, and yes, they will be affected. The people around you will be affected by it through boundaries, through the energetic ripple effect that the initiations are going to have. You will also experience quite nice parallels with some people as well. Some people will start to go through similar experiences to what you are. And that's always a very beautiful process. Sometimes you can get sent people within your initiatory process that, really resonate with where you are and can really find relatability with where you are. That's a very beautiful aspect of it as well. But relationship dynamics are inevitably going to have to change one way or another when you interact with infernal initiation. So I think that is everything that I needed to cover in today's video. Important subject, Definitely get in touch if you have any questions about this. If you want to book a mentorship, hit the third link in the description. If you want to join my membership program, the premium service, check out the first link in the description, as this work is my area of speciality. My area of speciality is a trauma-informed approach to occultism and shamanism, and helping people to navigate their initiatory processes in a way that is grounded and optimally sustainable for their evolution. But for now, thank you guys. Hit like and subscribe if this video was helpful to you, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.